Thank you.
Same with,
Robert will start and go around.
Robert Worth here.
Carolyn Casey here.
John Messina here.
Bob Meany here.
Leo Brem here.
Teresa James here.
Bill Werner's here.
Tony Papantone is here. Peter Michelson here.
Mike Weber here. Meredith.
Meredith Chamberlain here.
Okay, great. All right. We had great news since our last meeting, right? We met just before. We kind of knew what we were getting ourselves into. You guys got those emails from me regarding kind of the two meetings that the MSBA had for us. To be honest, the first one was just basically these 22 schools or whatever. So that was fine. And then the next one really was just more functionary going through module one. Kind of the notes were relatively brief because the information given really wasn't too much. We talked about the eligibility period, deliverables. So I was hoping today, let's look at the agenda, make sure I didn't miss anything. So we could go through module one together. That sound fair?
Sure.
So first, Christine's not here, but I didn't get any minutes. Thank you, Pino. I didn't see any minutes to approve, so we'll catch up. I think that's 2 in a row that we missed, so I think we probably have to do 3 meetings worth of minutes to approve. All right. Anyways. But generally speaking, there are 7 in module 1 in the eligibility period, 270-day. And Jeff, you know a little bit more than this on me, so just please intercept me and correct me wherever I misspeak, because I'm sure I will. It's a 270-day period.
Mike, when is that clock start to?
Good question. It's, for us, it's April 1.
April.
All right, which kind of stinks because most of this stuff, in my opinion, we can do right after town meeting. We should be able to have.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. As I was reading this over, it looked like they wanted us to have the money
Okay.
for a feasibility in hand, and we won't have that
Correct.
till town meeting, which is May 4. I think.
Right. So, how I'm reading it is this, and what I think we should pursue and should endeavor to do is tee up everything to be done and everything that we can submit right after April 1, get it through their portal into them. And then once the feasibility funding, assuming it passes, at town meeting on May 5th or whatever that date is, then we can sign that last letter and we can be kind of kick the ball back into their court. So my thing, so this process is, and we've talked about this before, it's long and it's very deliberate. And every piece of it is 60 days, even module 1 eligibility period, if you read through it, they say the initial compliance certificate, you have 30 days to complete this. School building committee, you have 60 days to complete this, right? But as far as I'm concerned, that's like, it's on the far end. So every time the ball's in our court, it should be our job to kick it back to them as soon as possible. Because what happens with the MSBA is not every meeting they have, but most of their meetings, if you read kind of the minutes, which I've done just peripherally, is they accept 4 or 5 schools into like that next module, right? So as long as they have everything back from their schools, it's too bad that we're not, our kickoff isn't, January 15th, quite frankly, you know what I mean? But because there were 22 schools, my assumption is that they kind of spaced them all out. I don't know why. But in April, it wasn't our choice. It is what it is. So, anyone have any questions? Just interrupt me. So, I have the 7 steps for the eligibility period, module 1. I'll list them first, and then I think we just kind of go through, frankly, and hopefully you guys, did everyone read through it? I hope. Again, their website is like information. It's all words. If it was a business website, I'd be pissed because it's like, no one wants to read that, right? But it's for us, it's perfect. It's exactly what we need. This is what you have to do. And there's links embedded in each one. So, I encourage everybody to tab that as a favorites on your Google and make sure you get into that. All right, the initial certificate, ICC, the initial compliance certification, is a legal document that we have to sign. When I say we, I mean the town. So that's one of our select persons, superintendent, and the chair of the school board. This committee here doesn't actually sign it at all. Okay. I think we should probably agree to it, but Leo, you've been through this before. It's my understanding that they will not accept it with any markups whatsoever. So,
To be honest, I don't know.
it's, she printed it.
Markups meaning adjustments?
It's 9 pages.
It's like 70 something, like.
Yeah, it's 9 pages, and there's 35 bullet points that each of them are a paragraph, or 38 bullet points each of them are,
And each is undertaken by the town. We
Well,
do this.
Yeah, so actually, why don't we just start there, right? Why don't we just look at that real quick? And if you don't have a copy handy, we'll just run through it real quick. I don't think I need to read every one, but really, what it references throughout is Mass General laws. Okay, they talk about how it's a need-based program. They talk about meetings are held in public forums, which this is. Thank you for everyone who's here, by the way. And if you're here or virtual, please raise your hands if you have questions and stuff. Interrupt me. I think that's probably the best way to do things, as opposed to as opposed to waiting for questions at the end. I'd rather just address something right away. It makes everyone's lives easier.
Mike, Michelle's on. If you want to come up.
Thank you. I'm gonna promote Mike too.
So that before everyone gets too scared about all of the process too, one of the things that is very helpful for us is once we have an OPM on board, because then they really kind of take over a lot. So, and keep us on track. So that's why I'm in that process in my other district of hiring an OPM with bus comments in it. And it's also a very scripted process of a request for service. So I'm sure that's in part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I will tell you, just because we did this last time, the OPM then in turn sets our agendas, runs our meetings, gets us to a point. Hey, this is what we have to do next. This is next. This is next.
You need a vote, you need this.
That's right. And that's why there's only a certain amount of owner's project managers that, are registered with the state and can do MSB and projects. They all have familiarity with the process.
Just a quick question, Mike. Does that seem to kick in on module 2?
Yes, right. Module
Right,
2.
not more.
100%. Yep. It's actually the first step of module 2. Okay, so going back to the ICC. Again, talks about us working with the authority. In order to qualify for funding, you have to, agree to certain Mass General laws. So number 6 on the most recent one, the district hereby certifies that can demonstrate that it has expended at least the minimum amount of the district's calculated foundation budget. So it talks about budgets a little bit in this. And we'll get into one of the other items here. It says you need the money for a feasibility study.
Jeff, do you know what that phrase means?
Yeah,
I
we're
sure
good.
don't.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, Mike and I talked about this before, it's at the end of the year report that we do, they look at how much we spend and we're fine.
Okay.
Yep, we're all good.
Just so you guys didn't know, I talked to Jeff and Mike LaFrancesca about this meeting, because I wanted it to be as brief as possible, knowing we'd be here for a while, because there's 7 things I kind of want to get through and probably have some homework after this. And since they had all the files from the last time, and this is what we did, so part of what state's looking for in this is another part of this module, and part of this document, the ICC, is they ask about your maintenance practices. And what are they? Do you have records of them? And we're good there. The town and Mike and Jeff have that stuff. So that's what I brought up there. And that's kind of what you're asking, right? Yeah. Running through this, if anyone read it and has any questions, or please interrupt me. But I'm just running through. You agree to use standard forms.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yep.
This may be for Jeff or anyway. Number 9, the district must vote to authorize and appropriate the full amount of funding for the proposed project that is necessary to meet the total project budget. Do we have to go to town meeting real soon?
No, so
I didn't think so, but that's the way that looks.
that's before they grant final approval of the project. We need to have our side of it funded. Does that make sense? So the failed vote that we had in 2019,
Right.
that's basically what they're talking about. If we had approved that vote, then they would approve us into the program.
So we signed this.
We just signed the same, that
but
we will get it.
this doesn't trigger
That's
an
right.
obligation to go to town meeting.
That's right. We have nothing to price.
This just means
That's right.
right now, we're starting down the path.
What they're doing is laying the framework of how it's going to go in this document.
Sorry, I just was reading stuff.
One thing I wanted to bring up in number 17, they talked about the district acknowledges and agrees that as part of the feasibility study, where a new school program option is among the options that may be studied, the district are studying potential sites for the proposed project. We've already done that. We've already voted on that. Doesn't mean we don't have to peripherally mentioned that with our owner's project management in the feasibility study about what the other possible sites were. So, again, we're agreeing to it. We're not in debt as far as the districts, we're current on payments. We have evacuations plans. It's pretty straightforward, and like I said, we can't redline it, so. I mean,
What they're
no
trying to figure,
negotiation.
what they're trying to figure out is how much you spend to maintain your current buildings, if you're supplying custodians, how many custodians per square foot you have, if you're got any kind of plans whatsoever. And we've had this stuff from the previous project, and they continue to upkeep, I'm sure, all the maintenance and project lists that we can't afford to do on all
Right.
buildings. Right?
So again, I don't think there's a lot to talk about in this particular document. Like I said, this group doesn't actually sign it, but what I'd like to do, after this is I'll get with Christine, as long as you guys all, don't have any questions, and say, hey, how do we get this in front of, well, Michelle is the chair of the school board, but one of the select, board members has to, one of the select persons has to sign this. So we just need to get it probably on an agenda for them.
That was just one of my questions. So their phrase, chief executive officer is the select board member, like the chair? of the
That's
select board?
correct.
It is in Medfield.
I'm
Thank
not sure it has to be the chair. I think they could designate someone to act as the CEO, Jeff, is that fair?
They probably could, yes. But
Okay.
I think it's maybe the chair, because the governing body is the select board, because it's a town administrator, not a town manager, that it would be a elected body, so. Yeah, it could be any member, I'm sure, but I think last time it was definitely the chair,
Okay.
like Mark Duty signed it last time.
Mike was also in this committee last time too,
Right.
so again, I don't think there's a lot more to talk about on the ICC. Is that fair? Happy to discuss, but again, I'll email Christine and ask her, hey, what are the steps that we need to take in order to get this signed? And my gut tells me select person signs it, then Jeff, then Michelle, or whatever order that is. All right, the next one is the form a school building committee. All right, so we're way ahead of this one, but there are parts of this that I wanted to go through with you guys because they have, if you look at the document, it's only 2 pages. They have 12 or 11 members listed, and I kind of wanted to go through with you guys who would be each of that if they qualify in this room, and if not, who do we need to appoint to this board or have appointed by the select board to this committee? So I'll start with the second one because I think it's, so a local chief executive officer, right? That person doesn't exist on our committee currently. That person, in my opinion, is either a select board member or someone appointed by them as their designee. Okay, so that would be a question I have for Christine and the select board.
Is that Christine as the?
Could be. That's where I was going next. That's kind of what I was thinking. And again, she's not here right now, but so that's my one kind of open question. The rest of them, I think we could probably answer. Yeah.
So the first one was the one I did.
Yeah.
I was reading about the MCPPO. That means you're certified in their ways and in accounting and ethics and all their requirements on that. And you have to get a certification from the MSBA.
Correct.
Is anybody here so certified?
Like the MCPPO.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody?
Christine is.
Oh, Christine is.
Christine is, Michael Alpercheska is, those are 2 people I know. Rob might. he might
Rob
be
Quinn,
as
I think, is
well.
as
Yeah, I think
well.
Rob Quinn is too.
So that's an open as well, right? Someone who's not currently, now again, a member of the committee also can be appointed and can be appointed as a non-voting member. So we have bylaws that say who our voting members are, and that's kind of us. We can have additional people on this committee that are non-voting members.
Right, and the town administrator is already on this committee as a non-voting member, as a superintendent and or his designee.
And the principal. as well,
And
I
the
think,
principal,
is-
so- That's already they're already members. And
Yep.
not the voting members, but they're already members, that's in the bylaw.
So again, I'm gonna ask Christine, the MCPPO certified. I believe she is, but if not her, maybe it's Rob or, hey, who can we get appointed to be a
Right,
non-voting
Mike
member?
will come as Jeff can designate him to be.
Or Mike, yeah.
I'm just thinking, here, Christine's gonna go under the,
So one person can satisfy multiple
oh, Tim.
as well, is how I understood it. And that's what I read on the website. It doesn't say it on this particular sheet. All right, administrator or manager would be Christine. School committee member, we have a couple, right? Michelle and Leo. Superintendent is Jeff. Local official responsible for building maintenance. That would be Rob.
Rob.
So, we would need, him to be part of a board. So last time on this particular sheet, I keep blanking on her name, Amy
Yeah.
Colleran was on as a non-voting member on the committee. She didn't attend very many meetings because candidly, we never got to the construction phase where it would be important for someone like that to be at the meetings, right? It was like, hey, we want access to this HVAC unit that's above the ceiling, not above the light, or, you know what I mean? Somebody who has that type of expertise. So again, Rob could be there, could do that. Representative of office authorized by law to construct school buildings. I mean, Tony or myself, I would assume, I don't know what authorized. I would put Tony in that particular one, candidly. I assume you did you build those?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Is that what that means? The word is so, strange to me.
It's weird, I don't know what that means, but
Well, our company built schools, so
yeah.
hopefully I'm legally authorized to do that.
Yeah, and you're the permit holder, so I would say, yeah, so I, as an electrician, like, we have a couple of us guys in here, like, better, but Tony makes sense to me. School principal, Steve, thank you for being here. Member knowledgeable in educational mission and function of facility. So we have a couple members. More than likely, if one person, I'll just go back to the school committee, meaning Michelle and Leo, right? Or Robert, or, you know, with school experience, candidly, we can just pick someone. I don't think these, or Michael Francesca as well, could fill that role. Local budget official, a member of finance, so that's our warrant committee members.
That buffoon.
I know, right? Members of community with architecture, engineering, or construction experience. We have a bunch of those in this room. And then other. And that's where the rest of us would fill in our names and kind of exactly what we are. You know, how we were, I would defer to the bylaw and where we all got onto the committee via the bylaw. I would use it, I would say that's what we should all do. So if I look back on that, it sounds like Rob, Quinn, one of the select board members or designee, as well as probably Michael Francesca should probably be invited to join the board. Non-voting members. Anybody? Questions, comments, disagree, agree? Jeff, does that make sense to you?
Sure. That's right.
Rob, select person.
You know, Rob is new this year, but he was in another community. He built, as in that role of facilities, built 2 MSBA projects for schools there. And then Michael has done 3 himself, so both of them have a lot of experience, so it makes a lot of sense to be part of it.
Yeah, 100%. Anyone with experience in this process, as far as I'm concerned, welcome that. All right, so that's 1 and 2. I think the first one we can almost satisfy immediately. The second one probably takes a select board meeting to get on that agenda and get to the point. That's fair. I believe that's how someone would come onto this committee. I actually don't know.
Yeah, if it's their designee, then you've got Christine. So
I'm there.
if one of them, then they're gonna have to publicly discuss it and then they would need.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What about like Rob, for instance, if we wanted to join this committee, did we vote
So
on that?
Rob's okay because the bylaw says the superintendent and or his designee. So Jeff just designates Rob and Michael to be here for the meetings, and that's already covered in the bylaw.
All right, so we can just appoint them.
Yeah, they're already like covered. He decides, he brings them, and then they're already here.
Okay.
And Christine's already here because that's in the bylaw. It's her or her designee too, because if she wasn't gonna be here for a meeting, she could have asked someone else in the town government to come if she wanted. And she did say she was coming later to, after the Park and Rec meeting. The select board have, according to the bylaw, they have the authority to appoint additional persons as needed according to MSBA.
Perfect.
So they can use that to add somebody else if we feel like someone else needs to be added who's not already covered, and or they could add one of themselves. They would just have to obviously take a vote.
Okay.
So we should,
So I'll talk to Christine.
yeah, when Christine comes, we should ask just for the next select board meeting that could be a, if it's going to be one of them, it's not her, we should ask that, so it's done already.
Great. And just to be clear, the voting and non-voting members are determined by the local appointing authority, so that's our bylaw. So that's clear. Talked about the SBC being diverse, which I think we are, which is great. And the other thing is if there are any changes to the committee, we just have to let them know within 20 days. Okay. The third one is the educational profile questionnaire. Overview of the district's current and proposed educational program for its current school facilities and how the district envisions the priority SOI school because of a potential building project in partnership with the MSBA. In summary, the EPQ requests the following information. Confirmation of the school district facilities, priority statement of interest, school room types and how they are currently utilized, what the district proposes to study during feasibility study, proposed school consolidations, which we have done, grade reconfigurations, which we have done, teaching methodology and teaching needs. If the priority SOI is a comprehensive high school, vocational school, it doesn't apply to this. Long story short, we have this exact verbiage from our old stuff, and we probably have to tweak, when I say we, I'm looking at Jeff and my wife Francesca, tweak the teaching methodology a little bit as well, whatever's changed in the last 5 years, as well as technology needs. But those things have probably changed within since last time.
So I think this kind of brings up what we probably need to talk with our liaison at MSBA about is whatever the timetable is on this, they open up the portal and they don't open it up until that timetable starts. It's something that we could do sooner if they allow us to, but I'm not sure they're gonna allow us to, on April 1, kind of jump ahead and do some of this. So I think maybe a conversation with our liaison to look at this and say, we've already done this. We have to update it. We have to just do a few tweaks here and there, but essentially a lot of it is the same. And we could just upload it and put it in the portal, but I'm not sure they're gonna, because they're so prescriptive, they may just force us to follow their timeline, not get ahead of it. So we'll see. But to your point, we've done a lot of this already. So.
Yeah, and if I understood it correctly, we can actually access the portal currently, but you just can't edit.
You just can't put anything in there.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
We
They don't give
can't
you
put
access.
it in yet till
Right.
April.
April.
That's
Oh, I thought we could load it, not that they would look at it,
Me
but they
too.
could just load it in and then it would
It'd
be
great
there
if we could,
again.
Yeah.
You know,
So is the plan you presented, you and Steve presented like a year ago in the fall, that's the document that they're.
that's not this one.
That's not this one.
That's not this one. Now, this one, This one really talks about let me pull it up right here. So it looks at the district-wide facilities and wants to know everything district-wide, what's in there. Describe how students progress from K to 12, example, what schools they go from, and next to exactly what schools they go through. In the chart below, please indicate the number of students in each group currently in Stale Street School. Please use the comments column to further describe the program, and it goes through grade 1, grade 2, science lab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty prescriptive, but you have to fill it in on their portal.
Yeah.
You know, so the whole education plan is during the feasibility, so it's a little bit different, but you know, that will need to be upgraded as well.
Is that?
Yeah, let's go through that as well.
So you went through this already, the last go?
We did.
Because you got that, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, this, module 1 has changed very little
Since
since
the
our,
last time?
yeah, since the
Okay.
last time.
Yeah.
Which is good, I mean, that we should be able to hopefully get through it pretty quick. Really what they want to know is, are you making any grade configuration changes? Are you combining schools, you know, things of that nature, which should have probably been mentioned in the SOI that we submitted already. But we're not making those changes. This is a one-for-one. Grade configurations are the same,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Okay. The next one we have is online enrollment projection tool. It's comprised of 2 questionnaires completed by the district that require the following: upcoming housing developments, housing sales, and permit information, current historical enrollment data as reported to DESE, DESE, private parochial charter school openings and or closures, I don't know of any, potential school consolidations and or grade configuration changes, that's none. Yep, and then any supplemental materials information the district feels may be affect enrollment. So I kind of wanted to talk about future things. So we have 2 enrollment studies. One is the NESDAQ, right? And the other is Future Think. So, does anybody have that Future Think study? I meant to bring it with me and I forgot it
It's
myself.
on the town website.
Do you mind pulling it up? There were 3 scenarios they gave us with enrollment projections. There was a low, medium, and a high. And I'm not saying we need to make a decision tonight, but I think we should all think about when we submit this, again, we can't start it until April, so we have a little time. While Carolyn is looking, I'm gonna talk for a second, then look for some opinions here. Let's pretend the numbers that Future Think gave us were, on the low end, you're gonna have 425 students, plan for 425. On the middle end, you're gonna have 450, and on the high end, you're gonna have 475. Those numbers are not exact. You have, somewhere around there. My general opinion, because this building needs to last for 50+ years, is I think that we should take the median plus a little, but not go to the high one. But that's, I want to hear others' opinions on that, once we look at those numbers.
On the report, I'm just scanning through to find the.
I printed it, left it on my desk, and ran out of rounds.
Okay, enrollment projections. So we have the moderate. So what years, where you want to go from? You want to go all the way to the 2033, or you want to go just, the moderate for the year 2025-26 is 2,493.
How many, I'm sorry?
2,000.
Oh, no, you're looking at the district. They broke it down by Dale Street.
Oh, you want to just,
Specifically, yeah.
hold on.
What I could do in the next couple of days, because I don't think we need, I think we can have a discussion now. I don't think we need to have an answer, nor should we.
My grades was 4 to 5. In the year 2025-26, 406 is the high. It's only, you know, a year out.
When did we looking at the latest set of dates? Not next year.
Yeah, I'm thinking we look at,
Like, what's the latest?
what's the highest of the high?
You know, like
454.
454.
Well, they have, I mean, if you want to go up,
Yeah.
well, like 2031, they have 504. That's the highest number I see here for grades 4 and 5.
And what's the low on the same year?
What's the,
504 compared to.
that's so high for that.
See, I don't
Back up
remember
here.
seeing a big difference.
46.
It's like 42.
Yeah, it's not. Oh, hold on, went to the wrong one. Low for 3031 is 409.
That's a-
No, I'm sorry, 418, because I think I said 2031, didn't I? So 418 is the low.
So it's,
Yeah, so,
And moderate is 454.
that's the middle. All right, so like I said, I don't, what I'll do after this meeting, in the next couple of days, is send you guys all an email with both the NESDAQ and the future thing again. Let's just think about it. What happened last time is they wanted to, Jeff, what was the number?
575. So, I mean, the process is they take all that information that we give them, they go through and they get a number. And then you meet with them and you give what you think is a number. And so when we went to that meeting, Christine and I, we said 450. We wanted to build a school for 450. They wouldn't let us leave the room without agreeing to 575. And there was a couple of factors on that. One was they had just, Hopkinton had just finished one of their schools and it was full and they needed to do an addition within like 2 to 3 years. So they're concerned about that happening to Medfield. It was right off the heels of that. The second piece is that Medfield historically has the biggest kindergarten, birth to kindergarten ratio. So we have a lot of kids that are born somewhere else and move here after kindergarten, a lot of kids. And there's 3 communities that have historically have those high numbers. It's Sudbury, Medfield, and Hopkinton. So I think they were really concerned about that happening to us, what happened in Hopkinton, and they were projecting much larger numbers. So I know that was kind of an interesting talking point the last time around. We really wanted, we set it 450. So if that had passed, it would have opened this September, and we have 384 right now in those 2 grade levels. So it would have been 384 starting in September, and we would have had room to expand it. You got to build it 50 years, right? You can't build it for the exact amount of kids you're going to have. We were on, they were off. But it was really no going back. Mike Quinlan and I had a meeting with MSBA at one point during that process, and he said, we think it's too high. And they said, well, you either go with our numbers or you start all over again in SOR. So you kind of have to go, they're kind of holding the cards there. So, but that process and that meeting that's listed here, that enrollment meeting, is when you go in there and say, we put all this information, we think it's going to be this, and you should build around this number, whatever that is. And then that gets certified and signed off by, I think, school committee, town, and superintendent.
I wonder, since time has passed, since their numbers, if we can say, look, didn't happen, your lead up. I know we're not that far out as they were
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
But,
Well, they'll do it all over again. So they'll use,
yeah.
you should think they'll use NESDAQ. Like NESDAQ has us, there's a couple of big years in there coming up with NESDAQ in their projections. When some of that, there's 2 really big kindergarten classes coming up in the next few years. So I think once those kids come through, looking at 248, 254, some of those numbers. And it's tough because we have lots of parents that keep their kids back in kindergarten and start in 1st grade, so that throws off our numbers. So it's not a perfect science, but I think we do have a couple of big groups coming through, and that's based on live births in town already. It's not projected. So I mean, I just think they take all that information. They have they have demographers to do all the stuff, and then they present it to you. This is what we think you should build, and you have to build around that. And we know, based on the last time, that really drives your cost.
Yeah.
Enrollment's driving your cost and square footage, so.
Just for point of information, at the select board meeting last night, Bob and I were there, and Gus brought that up.
It was the one question, really.
He wanted, he said, but he didn't want to kick the beehive or whatever, but, you know, this was a thing last time. But I said, it's too early in the process, we're not anywhere near having those meetings, so.
Right.
You know, but we did do an updated study, and we have some numbers and projections, and we got two that kind of match, so maybe it would be an easier conversation.
I think you're right. I hope so. I hope you're right. And again, what we can do for this particular module is present them both NASDAQ and Future Think, and they're gonna do their own thing anyway.
Yeah.
They're gonna do it independent of us anyway. So we're gonna, hey, we spend money on this. They've done, 9,000 schools in the last however many years. And this is the numbers that we got. They match pretty well to NASDAQ. So.
They also told us at that meeting that we're the only district ever to ask for less numbers of kids, because most times schools are in there and the MSBA is conservative, and schools that we're going to be filled within 2 years, and they're trying to advocate for more kids and more enrollment, and we were trying to advocate down. So it doesn't happen very often, but if you go on their website, they do have MSBA enrollment methodology. If you're having trouble sleeping at some point, open it up and read it, but it gives you a really good idea of how they do it.
I'd sort of like to hear from Steve, because I'm sort of thinking, geez, why not build it, get as much space as you can? If you can, go for the 504 number and have the extra space for musical instruments or for whatever it is, kind of thing. You always need,
I agree too. I mean,
you always need stuff, and you need space and.
Yeah, I think the last time that we went through this process, Jeff and I and a few of us went out, I think it was Harvard, Jeff, that we saw, was building a school at the time, and it is great because the way the builders are building, and Tony would probably be able to speak to this, is like, they do so much with the space that's in there, the creative space. So the instruments is a huge one for 4th or 5th grade, but Harvard had this wonderful, like, kind of, almost like locker room when you walk through the hallway into their band room right up on the side where they could put all their instruments and stored neatly and everything like that. So, as Jeff said, I mean, sometimes or all the time the MSBA, if you're going through their program, they make the call for square footage of the classroom or the numbers that are there. So as Jeff said, last time he knew, looking at the numbers, that, the people within the town might say that's too high. So trying to advocate to 450 number might have been more manageable for people, bring the number down a little bit. But sometimes if they say this is what it has to be, I think you just have to go with that.
Well, we did have space in the last one for instruments and all that, so they maximize, even though it was based on, even if they base it on 450 and not 575, they're gonna plan around that, because that's our educational plan, that music is important and lessons are important, so they need to build that space in. So they'll take, the great thing about the architects is that they take that education plan that we submit, and they build the school around that education plan, which is really fascinating to see. They do a great job, at least Arrow Street did with us. So, the space will be there, whatever we want.
I was curious, under the current circumstances too, Parks and Rec and everything else, and, and seeing Matt trying to operate in your space, Steve, and if I remember correctly, we had built in storage for the MAP program in the previous.
We did.
Yeah.
And National Classroom 6.
Yeah, that's right. Because with what's going on with the FAST Center and everything else, obviously I think it's something we should probably take.
Yeah, and that's what it is in the new building this year. Probably been an issue.
Part of this for me is getting the number right, but then the other part is educating the community of like, another classroom costs more, but the grand scheme of things is actually cheap relatively with the whole project costs. So I'm going back to Steve, for the art committee's presentation. Each classroom's got $500K. All right, so 50 kids is $1 million. A $100 million project is 1% to build in that extra redundancy. So part of it's the education of to the community of like, hey, listen, like everybody got worked up last time, and that was like this giant cost balloon that broke the project up, but it really wasn't. And so I just think it's a consideration as we kind of go forward.
Really good point.
Yep.
MSBA has started to do post-occupancy evaluations. So I think it's recent, within the past year or so. So my school is 3 years old. So they just completed this at my school a couple months ago. Very, very thorough. They went through the entire school. I spent 2.5 days with them personally, like a team of architects and not architects who worked on the building, architects from MSBA, representatives from MSBA, people from different schools, engineers, maintenance facility departments from other districts, and we went through everything. They surveyed everyone in the whole school, other people in the district, parents, families, students, teachers. Very, very thorough. They just sent us a 50-page document. So my point is that they have a lot of information coming in now from these folks' occupancy evaluations. So I think they're probably going to be well informed about kind of like the schools that they built, the projected numbers, and then how they ended up being. My school came back not so great. We're like at maximum capacity now, and it has nothing to do with enrollment. So our projected enrollment was very accurate, and our enrollment has actually not increased. We're running out of space for a couple different reasons. Our programming has changed a little bit. So we have like increased space allotments for STEM programming. So that's become kind of like a new part of our curriculum within the past few years since we completed the project. That wasn't anticipated. We also have specialized programs for students in my school, which they take up a lot of space in school, and that wasn't anticipated in the building planning. So we are completely out of space right now. We've added 2 additional classrooms and 2 additional learning spaces. So it's a different school, it's a different space, right? It's a different grade level, different towns. So there's a lot to take into consideration, but projected enrollment numbers are only part of what is projected as a school, like a future needs for a school. Just something to take into
It's
consideration.
add physically or add
We didn't add any space. No. So the building was built to kind of like accommodate additional classrooms, and we've completely maxed out. Yeah. And office space too. It was also built with like a computer lab, which we ended up creating in classroom out space. We don't use it.
I just wanted to ask a question, which I'm pretty sure I know the obvious answer to. But when you're negotiating, this is our number, this is the state number. I doubt that the state ever said, look, we've got a difference. We think you should be here, and we'll give you 5% more reimbursement. Yeah. I just want to ask that, because if I'm thinking it, some other people are probably thinking it too, and that's an absolute hard no, go away.
I feel like we said median to negotiate.
Yeah, no, I figure that's gotta be a question. It's obvious to me that, well, if you want it bigger, we'll give you a little more
I
money.
don't think there's much negotiation. I think the
Yeah, it
negotiation
didn't
last
sound like
time was because the numbers were so off, right?
Yeah.
We were looking at 450, they're coming at 575. So I think that was the kind of
Yeah,
give and
what are
take
we
there,
missing
but,
that you've got?
yeah. Why do you think so many more kids are gonna come in than we do? So,
What do you add, Steve?
Right now, 384.
So
We would open this.
I think Robert's point, Bill's point, I think most you guys kind of all said it a different way that, build it at least big enough for, and once an extra classroom or 2 in the grand scheme of things over 50 years. Because in addition to a school is $10 million. Pick a number. You added 6 classrooms, you know what I mean? The real classrooms, not the modulars that they have now, right? So, again, I'll send you guys, I'll resend this to, Jeff, if you can send out the NASDAQ one, I don't know if I have a copy.
it's on our website. I'll send it
I'll
right now.
grab it then, that's fine.
I can send it everywhere right now.
And then I'll send the future think one, and let's all just think about it. And when we do get to the point of like, I just want, if you want to send back individual opinions, or we can just talk about it at the next meeting again. Any further comments on it? I mean, maybe it's 504, because that's the biggest one that Future Think says we're gonna have in the next 15 years, right? And we all say, you know what? We'll have to sell that, right? This is obviously what the public wants. That's why we're here. Like, if it's gonna be hard no, build it to 384. We're gonna say, hey, we can't do 384. Maybe 455. Who knows what the number is? But like, because really think about it. I think we designed it for 20 kids a classroom. If you want to do math in your head real quick, that's what I was using last time. If I remember correctly.
I think Bill's point is to help people understand the cost and what it really means. It's my perspective, but last time it just got into this argument and people weren't looking at the math anymore or talking about it, they just got on the side of an argument.
There was a lot of misinformation.
Yeah,
There was a lot of-
so I think it's really important. We decide the numbers and then we explain, and then we also explain the other pieces of why it might be larger than them counting kids in class. Sure.
to be fair though, the 575 number was super large,
It was super.
and that argument was valid to me. You know what I mean? Like,
No, that seems way off.
you know, I thought,
You know,
if someone said like, "Why are we doing this?" I know why. They sat in the room and they said, "Sign it or start over."
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's why.
but I understood the other side of the argument. It makes sense. So that it wasn't like there wasn't misinformation. It was, yeah, that's a valid point.
Well, the misinformation was that the superintendent could have just signed a form and then would have gone back to a different number, like, that was misinformation.
Yeah, yeah. It
Like,
wasn't,
there was nonsense that was about
there was
that.
no, there was no choice there.
Yeah, for
Fitting the
sure.
whole school and the high school, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a.
A lot of
All
nonsense.
right, let's do our best to make it positive and say, hey, look, people have comments on this. Let's listen to them and make sure they're heard, and if they're valid, then let's pursue them.
I think that MSBA is establishing more credibility too in their ability to like accurately anticipate the needs of districts, right? Through these post-occupancy evaluations.
Mhm.
I really do think that like that department, they told us, was rapidly expanding. So it's something that they're putting a lot of resources into.
Yeah, that's great. Look, we're gonna have to partner with these guys, with
Yeah.
these people, and they're gonna spend a lot of money to help our town when we get to that point. So they have a say, and so that's good that hopefully it'll match our numbers. I mean, I don't know what's gonna come up, so we'll see. Anyways, for what we have to do in the enrollment meeting, the projection tool is fill that out, and then it mentions that there's an enrollment meeting. And again, they're gonna verify, you don't plan to change grade configurations, you're not combining schools. And then the MSBA will issue the district an enrollment letter. That has to be signed, and that's what Jeff was referring to.
Can I just ask about those meetings?
Yep.
Is the meeting all of us with them? Is it a small?
I wasn't involved in it last time.
So last time was when they were actually still going into MSBA in Boston. I think they've gone virtual and everything now, so my sense is it would be a virtual meeting. I think
So
if members
anybody-
of the SBC wanted to go, I think that'd be fine.
Because I think it'd be important for as many people as possible to see the process, be involved and understand, because that's more information about the process, right?
Yeah, my gut tells me that they'll probably designate one or two speakers, but the rest of us probably will be able to attend.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be virtual.
But generally speaking, the requirements for the module one are fairly straightforward, okay, for us. And again, we can do the exact same, we can use some of the information last time. Again, I'll lean on Jeff and Mike, because they've done this before, but to physically fill that out on their website, it is, well, it was already done, so we can use that again, with the exception of supplemental information. All right. The next one that we have here is the maintenance and capital planning. So it's a summary of existing maintenance practices, basically. So what this is district level information about maintenance and capital planning practices and budget using an MSBA web-based system. The information found by the district is used to facilitate the MSBA's assessment of the district's maintenance and capital planning practices as established by the MSBA's enabling legislation and regulations. The MSBA's assessment of the MCP information filed awards up to 2 incentive reimbursement points, which are reflected in the district's reimbursement rate and impacts the coverage scope of budget agreement and funding. So basically, the better your maintenance practices are, the more money they give you. Is that fair to say? And there's a 20, they have a 20 best practices for routine and capital maintenance upkeep of school facilities. Now, Jeff, I asked you about this prior, maybe you can just, I know we have kind of I'm just gonna say a template we have, hey, this is what we do.
Mhm.
But I didn't ask you specifically, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I will anyways, but you could add it. The 20 best practices that they kind of outline.
Yeah.
Do we touch on those in that, like, as far as, and I know Rob's new, so
Yeah, I have to look at, I haven't looked at the document in a while. I
okay,
have to look at it. I'm sure we touch on most of them. I know the town is also doing a building, capital plan, kind of going through the assessment with Arrow Street, going through all that. I know that
Yep.
they're doing that as well, so I'm sure we could take parts of that. The last one we had done, was probably right in during this process, so I'd have to look at it, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an online worksheet that all this data gets entered into. One of the biggest things that they look for is how much you're spending on capital and maintenance of the building.
Right.
So they want to take certain budget line codes that are out of the budget that are standard across all school districts. And they want to see that what you're spending on those, and then they match what you reported to the Department of Ed.
All right, so I think that's pretty easy to do, right?
Some
Maybe
people
what,
we need to lean on the school department for.
yes, exactly. And Rob, right? And I know Rob's new, but he has everything we've done the last couple of years.
I think Michael and Francesca, if available,
Yeah,
I
Michael
think
is-
would be really big help for that. I only know, I just did it, and I am the Michael and Francesca district, so,
Okay,
and I sit on that committee. Our superintendent is the chair of that committee, the SBC and so, you know, the school is doing a lot of heavy lifting on that, so, because they hold the data.
Okay.
So,
so as far as I'm concerned, for like this group, if you have any questions or concerns about that particular item, please raise them, but generally, we're gonna have to lean on Mike and Jeff and Rob for this information. Is that fair? All right, after that, is this is the local vote authorization. You have 270 days after eligibility period to make the start date. This is, I'm just gonna read the highlights. The district must vote to appropriate the funds necessary for the feasibility study and schematic design phases of the potential project. The MSBA has standard template vote language for cities and towns. Following successful local funding vote, the district should provide an original certified hard copy to the MSBA. And the specific amount to be appropriated by the community for this phase of the project is guided by information the MSBA makes available, including cost data noted on the website. So, that's our May town meeting. Where are we as a warrant committee? I know you guys have a meeting to finalize the warrant articles tomorrow, is that fair?
Not exactly. I had a question based on what you just said, but I'll try to answer your question first. Tomorrow, we're starting to do budget hearings of the various town departments, DPW, not the schools yet, they're early February, police department, fire department, library, things like that. Warrant articles will be voted on in March. We are already contemplating having a warrant article to bring us up to 1.5 million total for the feasibility study. My question was, you just read aloud, must be enough for feasibility study and schematic design.
It's the same, it's the same thing.
It's the same.
Okay, same thing. So what that does, so what we need to do, that's kind of module 2 feasibility study. Basically, you get to a schematic design through that. So there's a hiring of an OPM, there's a hiring of an architect. Those are your two large costs for that module, okay? They're both expensive.
I bet.
Now, Christine told me the number last time and I didn't write it down, but I'm gonna roughly say we have about $1 million in our kitty currently, as far as, this committee. We spent minimal to date, $16,000 on future things, some mailings, constant contact was, yeah.
We
that's-
put in, and there's a small amount of money for the Medfield TV booth, the band and
Exactly,
all that stuff,
exactly.
but it's very small.
So we're talking, so let's just, okay, round figures, and I will get these figures, exact from Christine. The MSBA, we're gonna set up a meeting with our liaison, so in my email, I talked to you guys that we have a project coordinator assigned to us. Carly is her name.
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask for information on recent middle schools, elementary schools, I'm sorry. What was the total feasibility study is 100, and schematic design, it's 100% on us in the town. They're not gonna reimburse us again for that money. I wanna know, what are the most recent ones costing?
Yes, so 1.5 is the number we were given. We were looking at, we're looking at the building approximately similar size.
Yep.
Around between 3 to 350,000 for OPM, 700,000 for design, and then site work and other, budgets.
Yeah,
That'll be part of your RFS that you're putting out.
Mhm.
And that RFS means that when OPM bids on it, that's what it is.
So, that's kind of what I was wondering as well. So here's, again, I asked Jeff and Mike this when I talked to them just pre-meeting prep. Let's just use the number 1.5 here, okay? 1.5, that's what we get awarded. We get at town meeting, the extra $500,000. When we put out the RFP, RFS, it's not for, so it's not a proposal, it's for services, right? So request for services, at 1.5 million.
You'll
And
be
I
more-
asked Jeff this, can we negotiate that down, because so much of the feasibility study work was already done and is recent.
Yeah, so that's, I would say yes, and I would say that we voted specifically on Monday night on divisions on that. I'm not sure why, because in the RFS, I think we should be putting a cap of not to exceed, and then have them come back at, right? So, so I will have more direct experience with that, just ahead of us going into it.
That's
So-
fantastic that you're gonna do that.
So I can make my mistakes in the first round, and then I'll be ready for this one. I'll be ready for this one here if I'm needed. But we have other MCPPO people here that could be doing that other work. So and MSBA is extremely scripted in this process too. So
Agreed. So module 2, if you look at it, there's a fair amount of work to be done, and it's actually fairly long, lengthy in time. And you hire the OPM, and it's an interview process. Once you have the money appropriated, my gut tells me we go to town meeting, we ask for money, don't finalize your numbers yet, because I think we should probably talk about that. And, I also know that we're not incredibly attractive for an OPM and architect right now because we had a failed vote last time. Doesn't mean they're not gonna make a difference, just means that what they wanna do is get into the process early and work with you for 3.5 years to build a school, right? That's what they really need to do, because it's just billable hours.
I've been told by 2 people we're high on their radar. So 2 different.
Oh, really? So that means they're a little bit slower, that means that everyone's slowing down a little bit. Right, Tony? It works hard to come by right now. So maybe that'll be good for us too. Doesn't matter, we need to get those numbers and figure out what that number's gonna be.
I just want to say, I was thinking a lot about our last meeting and you were talking about this, and one of the things you said, and I find in life is actually very true, is consultants tend to want to do their own work rather than take pieces of what other people have done. And I know we have this feasibility that was done. But I think also that I don't want to hamper who wants to do this for us by thinking that they're going to have to use other people's work and not do it themselves.
Yeah, I think some of the reused work would be more of the kind of the standardized things like site testing. Like case in point, we surveyed and tested 7 sites in town. We don't need to do that again.
Yeah.
We voted on the site, so we know which site. it's gonna
Yes,
be
we
on.
know it's like.
It's not like they want the view at it, but all the work, all the research that was done, the hours of work to research those sites, that
All the
doesn't
factual
need to be-
data.
Yeah, all that
Hasn't
factual
changed.
data is done.
Yeah,
So
that
the
piece. but-
creativity side that you're referring to, yeah,
Yes.
that will be redone.
Yes,
It has to be redone. That's
Right.
part of the process. So the educational study that Jeff referred to, that very long document that was
Right.
when you're interviewing, the community that Rob's community went through to get to that point. We're going to be doing that again, and that's, so that wouldn't be happening.
it came up also at the select board, the question about, we did a feasibility, because we do have to pay for it now,
Mhm.
well, we already did it, so we can use a lot. Bob and I were very, well, we'll see, about it. Because I don't, that's the piece that.
No, it's a fair point. I kind of agree with what Leo and Bill just kind of mentioned, like, the facts are the facts, nodes are known, creativity stuff, that's, so an OPM and an architect is very different to me.
Right.
Whereas an architect, like, you want them to be creative and like, have a look and feel of the building and work with, the educational programming to build something that really works for the town. As far as the OPM goes, and when it comes to dollars and cents, I think it's incumbent on this committee to say, hey, look, if we have 1.5 budgeted, again, picking a number, when we actually get to the point of interviewing OPMs, we should say to them, what can you reuse and how much will it save us? And why would you not reuse some other?
Right,
So, you
yeah,
know
I
what
think
mean?
those are
I think
important,
that's,
questions in the whole process.
But I think in preparation of that, we need to do the 3 buckets, right? The things we're gonna use, the things we're not gonna use, and the things we can use for adjustments. So if we go through that process too and have that ready, we can say, we've identified these areas that we don't think need to be redone again, and give us a little leverage that way.
So again, we just speak to the MSBA and get some data from them. Right, they may give Dayton as an example of like, hey, they just 2 grade elementary, they're a little bit larger.
But 2 grades, same number of students.
Same number of students.
Yeah, 5th grade.
So, yeah, I'd love to know what it's going for. And it's good to hear that people are already, 22 schools got in. I actually got an email from somebody, from supervision about, they're looking forward to the new school.
Well, 22 is a lot, to be honest. I thought that was a high number, to be honest.
So Mike, if they're looking for 270 days, we basically can get this wrapped up like that. It sounds.
My hope is we kick the ball back in their court
Right.
after our main meeting, or after the.
I mean, a
I
lot
would
of
say it
stuff-
would be our June meeting because we'll have the. But yeah,
After the May town.
Yeah, their board meeting, I think, was late June, if I remember right, so we want to be, right, 2-3 weeks after that.
yeah, and again, I will, in conjunction with Jeff, try to reach out on behalf of us, and say, hey, to Carly, our project coordinator, and say, Carly, here's the deal. We've got 95% of this already. That's a fair statement, And, like, we're ready to, April 1 kicks, like, we're gonna have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're not gonna have town meeting until middle of May, or beginning of May. Other than that, if we're ready, so I wanna see how fast, and maybe they'll be flexible though.
We're meeting April 30 and June 25th, so you're not going to April 30.
Yeah, we can't.
June 25th.
What's June 20?
That's their board meeting. That's when you can graduate.
No. You don't think we could hit the May one?
They have an April meeting, not May 1.
April
this
30.
this is May, okay.
Now, I don't know if they're even going to allow it. Yeah, again, I will absolutely
Except that
communicate
we
that.
already have some funds allocated. Yeah, we do, we have 2/3 of it.
Well, the reality is, we could actually start it now. Because we
Yeah,
have
so-
to, because you're not gonna spend it all right away, you spend it all over. But if we failed the town meeting, we'd have to have a special town meeting to make up the rest of it, because you will spend all of it before hopefully next.
And that could be a question for either the coordinator or people that we know in terms of like, hey, for a failed vote, when you get back in, is it 2/3 of the prior feasibility study because they're reusing stuff, or get a sense of what the
It's a good
market is?
question too, yeah. We weren't the only failed vote to get back in, there were 2 others, there was Ipswich and Whittier Regional Vocational School. Ipswich was 2014 and Whittier was 2019, so sounds like the same time frame as ours.
Past, repeat this maybe for you, so it'll go on the warrant. I saw that there's like very specific language that they want in the warrant article for this. That pooled money stays encumbered, for lack of a better word, like for feasibility only? If we don't use it, it reverts back into the, making words up now, the general fund, free cash, or it can then get allocated to the,
That's
buy
actually
down
an
a down
excellent
payment.
question. Can we put language into the warrant, say, when it is expended, it'll roll, we also have that separate fund.
that's what I'm going to, like, because like, it'd be great to say, hey, we saved $200,000 on this versus what we expected, and we're gonna actually use that money for, it takes the conversation off the table of, why do you need this much money? You did this last time, aren't you gonna reuse it at work? And you can flip it into, we're gonna do it for as little as possible.
Well, we already, what I was thinking, what popped into my head, and I think that's an excellent question, is can we, put language into the warrant saying, say, we spend $200,000 less. We've already, was it 600,000 we appropriated to go into
Down
an
payment.
abatement fund, down payment, so to speak. We're gonna probably do a comparable amount this year, depending on how free cash works out with everything that's going on in town. So the issue would be if we have 200,000 left over, rather than having to go back to free cash, which requires a separate vote at next town meeting, could we just, I will this something about that, and Christine, can we put something in that says it'll just roll over to the abatement fund?
Yeah.
And that's a very creative idea.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And I think and then the other question becomes like, is there other money, like, let's just say we top it up a $500,000 and somebody tells us, no, it's gonna cost $4.5 million. Do we need to ask for $1.6 million or $1.7 million to give?
I think generally we need to ask for, if the MSBA comes back to us and they say, this one costs 1.4, this costs 1.5, this costs 1.6. My gut tells me we asked for, and we have $1 million. My gut tells me we asked for 650,000.
Yeah.
With the stipulation, that anything that isn't spent, we're gonna do it as cheap as possible, obviously, as well as possible, but goes into this other, we're actually paying it for, the money goes towards the school project.
But would there be other expenses that would have material expenses outside them?
The only material expense, so there's, like Leo said, there's consultants, like you hire environmental engineers, you hire people to come in and test soil and dig for whatever.
We have the pizza.
Yeah, exactly. The other expenses that are aside from the traditional, what we did last time, for instance, if we wanted to hire a third-party
PR firm,
PR firm,
Yeah.
which I'm personally in favor of,
communications consultant.
100%.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, right? Yes, communications consultant.
Madman.
What does that cost? Is it 30 grand? Is it 10? No, not 10, but is it, how many meetings is that? You know what I mean? I'm again. I think the communications system is doing fantastic, but we all know that the more information we get back to us, we can spend everything out that we get. If we don't get information back to us, we're not doing. It's not a pass. We can't afford it. So that's a good question. I think that should be figured in as well.
Don't forget, I mean, like you said, Mike, times are tight right now, so I think it's a good time to go to the street to get these RFSs.
Yeah.
I think you get some competitive numbers.
What Tony's saying is the construction market generally is down. Costs not so much, but
Not so much.
yeah,
You're gonna
but the
get-
fees are
You're
down.
gonna get the interest, and reading the feasibility report, I gotta believe 80% of that can be reduced, it's just factual information.
What about the building signatures?
I found it, I just went on, it's not on, I couldn't find it on the website, I had a
Yes,
Google,
the architects.
Google
Feasibility?
it, and I found.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
But there's that problem.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Process
Thank
is
you very much.
very complex, thorough.
All right, just
Long.
700 pages.
Yes, I didn't read the whole thing, I just,
Uh,
yeah. But it's
the next part of module 1 is the is a legal agreement between us and MSP. And it's a after use, so. So, what that basically describes is it's 3 different exhibits. Exhibit A, completed by us, reflecting the proposed budget for the feasibility study, broken into OPM, designer, environmental and site testing, and then other. There's 4 items there. Exhibit B is completed by MSBA, which is the scope. And then Exhibit C, which is also the MSBA, is our rate reimbursement. So at that time, it will tell us what our rate reimbursement is. Medfield is a more affluent town than some others, so generally speaking, our rate will be probably lower than the average that you see on the website. When you see them. So,
Are you saying you think it might be less than 23 million or straight to what it said?
oh, dollars and cents wise, I don't know. I think it. They set a rate. And I believe ours was close to, what was it, 38%, I think it was last time.
But it won't never be the full 38.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if you look at the average on their website that they listed, it's higher than 38%.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Let's just use the number 38%. It's what it was last time. Maybe it's the same this time.
I think it was less last time. I think.
Yeah, well, when the design comes back, they give you points, and they kind of point structure it to, did you meet, did you make it a LEED gold building? Okay, well, you get 2 points for that. You don't get
You
it.
added an extra gym.
Yeah.
You subtract 2 points.
Exactly, things of that nature. And really then it becomes a percentage of the overall cost as opposed to reimbursable costs is what they're looking at. So if you look at 38% of reimbursable costs, that reimbursable cost only makes up 80% of total costs. And that 38% goes down to 25. Does that make sense? So that's module 1. So I already have some emails, but I think let's check to see if there's any questions. I think at the next nothing open. I think at the next meeting we can discuss a little bit more of the educational profile questionnaire. No, I'm sorry, not that one. The design enrollment. I can get a little bit more granular for you from, I'll ask Michael and Francesco, like, hey, what does it look like exactly?
Would it be helpful if we put together a packet for everyone that has all these submittals that we did last time, so you can kind of get a sense of what, if you're looking at these generic ones from MSBA, maybe it'd be helpful if everyone saw the ones that we submitted last time.
That would be
Kind
very
of give you a
helpful.
sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know
it's a
that-
lot, it's a ton of paper. but-
Yeah.
I didn't even see it last time.
I would say the RFS, definitely, let's at least do the process like the RFS last time.
Yeah,
I
I can
think,
do that.
I mean, yeah, like I said, it's like all buried on the old paper.
But that's, yeah, some of that is, but when we're talking about module 1, I don't think any of it's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, we have it all in a enormous binder now. But it might be helpful to see.
Yeah,
that would be great, actually. Good reasons.
I think we should,
We'll scan it instead of send it to your meeting, though, so that way
If you made a place we could all just go to, what's easiest for you, we could go and look at.
see, Bill just found one. Found the enrollment one.
Enrollment report.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, I think we could probably scan the key ones and then email to everyone.
that'd be super helpful, thank you. Between now and our next meeting, I'll endeavor to, you haven't heard from Harley, right, Jeff?
No.
Yeah, so maybe you and I can get together and get Meredith maybe as well.
Sure.
Get some availability there and, try to get her on the phone.
Okay.
Do we want to, and if you think it's a bad idea, please say so, do we want to, as a group, maybe by Zoom, I wouldn't want to try back there, but just have a group meeting for 20 minutes with Carly, just so she sees us, and can talk to us, or do you think that's counterproductive?
I don't think that should be our first meeting.
Right, okay.
I don't know, Leo, you're on your committee now, you guys, who's talking to the MSBA, just the, chair?
Mostly the chair. Who I already mentioned is
I got no problem.
happens to be our superintendent, but he's come up with a big project in Attleboro, and has a good rapport with them, so he does a lot of that communication. And we're up for our February kickoff for our 260 days.
Okay.
So it's, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Meredith, I have no issue whatsoever. Actually, I think it'd be great. I don't know how productive it would be,
Okay.
but I don't know. I haven't met her yet. I listened to her speak for 5 minutes, on Zoom.
One of the things that would be helpful for us as a committee is, and the OPM does a lot of that, but making sure there's like some clerical help involved in that process, to act as communication, and so that it's not 100% falling on the schools, unless the schools can allocate. I don't know how we did that last time. So I just think whether it's finding the FTE or the hours and somebody you already have on staff, but there is stuff to be done. There's a lot of shuffling. There's a lot of deadlines and making sure we stay on task, and the OPM does a lot of that, but whether we build that into the contract or
Yeah.
they're taking into consideration.
I think you're right, Leo. I think after the bunch of 2 starts, I think then it becomes heavy lifting, because we all get number.
Whether it's a current person that will work at other hours or, something on those
Yeah.
lines.
Particularly
with the demand on the school department to produce information and organize to.
You're starting to see that, Leo, on your side now, huh? Starting to see that demand. in the
Being
school
considerate.
Different beat on that side. isn't it?
Just hire it.
The other thing too is I think we just should prepare for our liaison to change during this process. I think we went through 3 different MSBA liaisons during the last project, so they're fairly young, and I'm sure they look for other positions as well. So
I felt so old on this.
I felt very old.
That's why I quit. That's true.
Does the coordinator have multiple towns he or she
Yes.
is working on?
And multiple towns through multiple phases as well,
Right.
I guess, too.
So I think she has 3 in our phase, but you're right, other phases.
So there's 3 in phase 2, 3 in phase 3, 3 in phase 4, you know what I mean? Okay. I'm through my spiel of kind of what I wanted to talk about. I owe you some emails. I got an email Christine regarding the ICC, as well as the formation of the committee itself. Formally, how's that work? Maybe next time we talk too, I can present the school building committee like that form, or at least like tell you we got 3 people. We have new members coming on. And then agenda.
So, Mike?
Yeah.
At any point in the process in the lead up to town meeting, do we need to pick up the pace as far as an extra meeting at some point? I mean, I think there's enough that meetings, our meeting in February is fine, but are we gonna need a couple of meetings a month to get some of this work squared away, voted on, things signed?
Yeah, good question. Probably. I don't.
And it might be Zoom,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. very well, And as the work that, we can be doing to help, Jeff and whatnot.
That's a great
I'm
point,
not
Bob.
speaking for everybody, but I got time, so, I can, if there's stuff that needs to be done, some lumping around doing work. Is that,
Come hang out with us.
yeah, right, yeah.
You eat that black, remember?
Carla
Yeah,
gives you
no
an
problem.
indication that we can hit an April 30th board, because it's all about kicking the cycle ahead,
Correct.
and rather than waiting until that June
You can
25th,
ask the question anyway.
then kick it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think about the only thing that I'm actually not. Okay, let me ask you, Jeff. last time we asked for feasibility study money, I remember it was just like a number presented to us, hey, this is the average, it was $1 million. Like, and that was, like, it wasn't even a discussion, we just wrote it in and said, go, right? Like, I don't think any of this, but to go back to that question, I mean, work to be done, yeah, more than likely, especially as start to engage with PMs and interview them and have architects, like, I would love for that process to be quicker than, you know, you only interview so many people in one night. We're not gonna do it over 3 nights. You know, that's gonna be a process, and,
But that's not till,
that's
Module two.
So,
That's,
I mean, I'm looking at this stuff, I don't, like I said, I think we're 90% there. But let's talk in February. And after we get in touch with MSBA, what are our real-time deadlines? Best case scenario, what board meeting could we be presented to get into, you know, the next one? 'Cause that's most important. And then we have to backdate it,
And I'm gonna be happy to share, because I'm literally in that process now, so all the stuff that I'm doing right this second, we'll be doing again with people. So,
Great.
anything I run into, and,
Red flag it.
I will totally share my pain.
Mike, just to help you between now and then, like, I'm thinking about your list of things that you're gonna be doing. I'm talking to Christine about the makeup of the SBC and talking to the select board, if that helps you.
I'll send, when I send her a note, I'll CC you.
And see, yeah,
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
can go over.
I just
your
don't wanna
day
CC
over-
everybody, so it's not public, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'll do it on Medfield, obviously Meredith as well.
Right, I'm just trying to think if there's some of these things we need to do, and I know that it's kind of paperworky thing, but at the same time, if we can do a piece of it, then
Thank
just give a yell,
Get it done.
get it done.
Yeah, why don't we just, well, we can talk about that. Okay, thank you for that, yeah, for sure. All right. I don't think there's anything to talk about on module 2 currently, candidly. Do you guys have an update on the subcommittee? Do you get the subcommittee?
This isn't really the subcommittee, but Bob and I, as I said,
Yeah.
the select
I
board,
was talking
and
about
they just wanted an update, they're very thrilled that we got in the MSBA. So we just explained that we're starting, not everybody knew that we don't really start till April 1st, so we explained that. And then, you know, I didn't really start anything yet, so we just told people, you know, please come to our meetings, pushing the constant contact, updates, get, you know, more people signed up. There weren't a lot of questions, just, I think people who were, involved in the last process, they're looking at, you know, things coming up and some worries about things like the enrollment and other such things, but other people, it's all new to them, so they're like, oh, this is what you're doing, you know, so.
Any other concerns, like what anything else?
So they mentioned the one about the enrollment, was that going to be a, you know, a thing again? They also said, that now that the Path Center is, you know, going down, you know, they're working with Park and Rec as to what to do, and Gus said, you know, when you guys are looking at how you're gonna build and what you're gonna do with the site, because you have now voted on that site, you should think about that space, and if that space has any impact on what you're doing. And if it does, then we should be talking to the select board about some thoughts about that, if we have any. You know,
There was a consideration at the time about if the FAP was not there, what to do with that space.
exactly, so but there's like these two channels right now, because the Park and Rec are on this channel of what do we need, where do we want to be, and that's just unknown right now. So there's that piece happening, but if they weren't back there, then how does that impact what we're doing on that site? And he thought we should be thinking about that in case they're not there. How does that impact what we're doing? And so think about it.
I basically said, we're certainly not gonna ignore a piece of property that adjoins the school, but what we're gonna do with it, I have no idea.
Let me ask the question in a different way. Were they inferring that when we get to a point of design, Is like laying out a school in Bell Street site, we could use that site.
I think the thought is when we get to feasibility, because that's when we know we have to think about that, if there's some park and rec decisions made, then that piece of property may or may not be used. So,
I would love to use that site.
The way I put it is, that's the site. We've not made any decisions about what siding on the site is gonna look like. And nothing is etched in stone, and as I put it, it's not even etched in fluff. We are wide open, we are willing to listen to people, and we want input from the community as what you would like to see. So that's what they got.
we said very clearly that there's no decisions about
Nope.
new versus Advent or
Nothing.
anything. I said, we're nowhere near that. And we
Was,
want a lot of feedback on the way.
did you sense that a subtext of what was being asked was whether the new school building could be built big enough to include a FAC?
It was not said like that, but we've heard that prior.
Yeah.
It was not said last night. I think the big thing is that, they're trying to make a plan for Park and Rec, and there's several plans on the table, possibilities on the table, and not all of them involve that land.
I've not paid attention to the Parks and Rec discussion. But, like, this just has, like, spidey sense of everybody's gonna do this. If it's not my land, I don't own it, it's not my decision, and it's like, in terms of, like, the risks of the end goal of building a new school, that is one of them. That, like, I don't know, I mean, Scott, you probably know this better than anybody, the right people to get in a room to kind of help guide and shape the policy decision around how that should work. But, like, it's like, that's gonna be the thing that if we don't address it and we let it play us as a group, like, it will at some point come back to disrupt everything we were doing. And it's like, the more that the right people can get in a room to get ahead of it, of a strategy and leadership and like a vision, like the better we will all be. That's my point of view.
I agree, but remember this, it was extremely specific about the makeup of this committee and exactly what its charge was.
I get, I'm saying,
I know.
throw all that out the window and get the right people in the room
Yeah.
to like be reasonable adults and like come together and figure it out, and like we'll all be better for it.
Give me a little bit
Yeah.
more context on that, Bill, just so.
Well,
I'm clear.
I hear what Bill's saying.
I think I understand you, but you're saying we should be talking to Park and Rec to say, what do you do? Is that fair?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, ideally, you want somebody from the select committee, the warrant committee, the Parks and Rec, and our committee to get in a room and say, all right, what are you doing? What are you doing? How are we thinking about costs? Can it all be done at the same time? Yes or no? Like, do we want to do them sequentially? Because that gets all into the town, the communication in terms of how we want to communicate of, hey, town, just so you know, this is going to be $100 million plus project. We can't do them both at the same time. That's the warrant committee's point of view. And then so we're going to sequence them. Like, we will all be better if we, like, if we're coordinated and we do it together. I know that we love certain guardrails that we can act within and we can't, but the more that all the decision makers can help come together and be aligned, like the better we will all be.
I have had a conversation with Park and Rec, and they she called me. Yeah, no,
The director?
yeah,
Katie.
Lauren?
Laura's great. And I told her, like, on a personal level, I'd go to the building tomorrow, like, I live in town here, I think it's a great idea. Didn't speak, I said, I'm not speaking for the committee, I'm speaking for me. But, like, I'm gonna, like, draw a line in the sand and say, you do your thing, we're gonna do ours. But in conjunction, we should talk, because where are you gonna build, what are you gonna do? That building right now is condemned.
It is.
Yes, we
they,
have,
they voted at a prior select meeting that it's not worth putting millions in to restore it, so they're done, it's coming down. But nobody has the money to bring it down right now.
what happened was, is there was some, structural issue,
Right, did they get a second opinion or something?
and again, I don't know, that's.
They did, they had
And
the
engineering.
first people who said it, and then the second people came through who found more and also put prices on the first part.
So, the building inspector said, came to
To the point that, thinking too, like, for site purposes, that decision would be better if that's made sooner rather than later, because if we are to use that property, removal of the building could be built into the project.
100%. I think Bill's general point is that we should be talking to them, and again, charter is a charter, and the bylaw is a bylaw, but you're right, 100%.
It is.
This was a
fiscally
corporation.
responsible.
Yeah.
It would be coordinated.
And it's fiscally,
Yeah.
it's fiscally responsible to do so.
Well, it's just reasonable, you know? And I think Christine's at a meeting tonight, so maybe she can give us more information on
I
that.
was gonna say, I think, Parks and Rec is in a tough position. They're now forced to make some decisions, forced some actions, to present options. So, we should wait, and, because we have no idea whether the future vision is even with that site for them. So let's not quickly assume that a Parks and Rec is at that site altogether. They may have other options.
They have been looking at all kinds of ideas and options, and I do believe, weren't they at was it you or Tim or someone was at one of their meetings and talked about it's gonna take a few years, it's not a quick solution.
I was at a meeting, as a permanent building committee member, for short-term and kind of long-term.
Yeah.
They were looking, what are they gonna do for the summer programs? So they're talking about trailers and that type of stuff, and then, they're very concerned about being in Hinckley, but also the hospital, so those are kind of their two main areas as well, so
They got a life.
there was a lot going on. I feel really terrible for them, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's one of the only kind of department they make one, and it goes, you know what I mean, the rest of us, spend.
And it all happened so quick, it's one day you're in the building and the next day you were not in the building.
Yeah, I feel like,
Right.
as a resident, that's,
Just have to that was on Park and Record from 1998 to 2002. And
That's
the
true, I
building, we did inspections then, so it hasn't, it's just the prioritization the town has.
Yeah, it keeps pushing it off.
And I think it's not for this committee, I think, but Jeff, you must think about it all the time. I mean, where does the Wheelock School fit into this equation? For me, as high as Park and Rec. By the time this project is completed, there's going to be requirements. I walk around that building, I'll do it 5 times a
Thank
week.
God we have Mike to chair that.
I'm not trying to make it more complicated, but at some point, by the time this process is over,
Oh, yeah.
that's
It'll
going to be a big factor.
Yeah.
That's good news.
And I think there's also no question that whatever we come up with for a warrant article at town meeting to fund more of our work, someone's gonna ask the question, are you folks talking to Park and Rec?
sure.
That, it's gonna come up, so you may as well have an answer.
It's a good opportunity for them to promote themselves too, the tail end of ours. If they've got something new they want to talk about, people are talking about the growth of the town, it's positive. And it'd be a big help for us too.
No, I listened to the video last night. My only question coming out of that was that, especially for that group, maybe if you receive like the continued education on costs, when you look at the latest like MSBA scatter plot, things are going up substantially. I think maybe something like 80, 90 million, like I don't want to put a number in Gus's, or not Gus, I want to put a number in the select board's head,
Yeah,
when,
it could
and then
be
when we
higher.
show up at 120.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I thought we said 80, so I think education and continue just hammering home, this is gonna be the most expensive project by far in the town's history. I don't think that we can do that enough. We start with the letters, the stuff we've done. We may want a full education session just for them in terms of where things are going and latest view.
Steve Callahan has said that many times at warrant committee meetings, but that's not the same as getting it out.
So maybe for our next kind of update to them, that's a more kind of prescriptive, analysis of where we see things based on the way sometimes we already do.
Yeah, fact sheet.
Yeah.
And just doing this.
If it, like even Steve doing an update as to what the new projects that have now gone through have come in at, right?
Like the failed vote that we had looks like remarkably like very, very, very cheap in relation to the current projects that are going.
Just got a
People
number,
need to understand that.
I just got a number from Needham looking at $300 million middle school.
So Ken just approved the 260 something or 280 something million.
Oh, middle school, yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of money.
100 million may be a bargain.
The only other thing from the communication subcommittee after our last meeting, we did talk about that, a PR firm, and we talked about, neighborhood groups. We think that, the neighborhood groups probably, it'd be too early to start that until you get to module 2, to the feasibility. Otherwise, it might just burn people out a little bit. And we think, we could work on putting some structure in, how you would make the groups and make group leaders, and we talked about fact sheets so that the information was clear, and maybe having SPC members take a couple of groups and attend those meetings so that we were gathering all the information that we need to hear, but also giving clear information from us. So we're sort of talking through all that piece of what we said at our last meeting. And then in terms of the PR firms, obviously, there's a lot that they can do for us as we move forward and we get to those pieces. We did, however, talk a little bit about, we thought it was important, and I'm gonna ask if you guys would also just say more than I'm saying, that it's important to have a community voice when you're giving information, that it helps in terms of the community understanding, like when we're talking about what we're doing, we all live here, we're all gonna pay the tax bill too, and we're all gonna use the school, et cetera. And that sometimes that gets lost in a PR firm. And some people like PR firm stuff, and some people don't trust it because it's, you know, not community. So we were discussing that in.
Yeah, just at a comfort level, but we certainly, I think, we can use help with how we communicate, do a best job we can, also getting information back from the community members. But for that personal touch, faces that people recognize, names they recognize, don't necessarily want the communication specialist, whoever the term is, doing a lot of the talking. It should be us doing the talking. We're the town committee.
Or listening.
The firm will do a lot of that. They'll be using people. It's more of scheduling. Okay, every Tuesday and Thursday we're gonna have Facebook post, an ad in the paper that goes home, and then do a mailer every month on updating on the project we're gonna do. You know, it's the round robin of scheduling all around that continued channels. You know, I think we could have done better last time.
So they do a little bit of the admin stuff, but we're the face.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And collecting feedback from the community.
Right.
Who knows? It could be a podcast while we're doing that. I don't know what they're doing now. So.
That'd be boring.
What's that?
So boring.
Oh, don't worry. The Mike Weber billboard is going to go.
Oh,
on
yeah.
Starbucks.
Yeah.
So, and we're just doing our updates.
Yeah.
So we'll,
Thank you.
we're meeting after we're done, and we'll put the January update up. So
Fantastic.
just keep spreading the news about the council conduct. We're almost at 500.
Oh, good, that's good.
It's great.
Yeah.
It would be, I think anything over like 1,000 would be good, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that would be like a fair quantity.
One thing I'd
At
love
this
to,
early in the project? Yeah.
Yeah. Or even like in like, even like 6 months from now, we get 1,000 going.
I think that the piece that we need to tap to is like, so Jeff and a lot of information out. So if you have kids in school, you're getting information about this process. But for the people whose kids, they don't have kids, or their kids are too young for school, but will actually really benefit from Dale being fixed, I'd like to bring them in So I was thinking of like, maybe talking to Katie, you know, the director of Park and Rec, because she has that pool of people, quite a lot of them, and just trying to think of other places like that to tap into that we could,
Suck.
yeah,
New in town.
Yeah.
do in town. You know, some of the, if you guys have kids who are on the basketball leagues, soccer leagues, whatever they are, you know.
And I know this sounds very marketable, but then there are companies who just buy the list from that have all the emails.
Yeah. All right, that's all I had. Anything else? Thank you, Caroline, for that update. You guys are doing, I appreciate it. Make sure we have no Q&A. Clean. Good.
Michelle has anything?
Michelle, you good? If not, do you want to make a motion to close the meeting?
Yeah, I can do that. You want me to make a motion to close the meeting?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
Leo got it. Michelle, why don't you start?
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Robert Worth, yes.
Caroline Casey, yes.
Paulini, yes. Leo Brent, yes.
Chris James, yes.
So one yes.
Tony Hubbard, yes. Peter Michaels, yes.
Mark Weber, yes. And Meredith left, to close? No.
Never.
Never.